All right, so moving into here, we're going to take a look at the torso detail now. And it kind of has a cloth type feel. I don't want to go too clothy with it. You can see I have some indication. It has some key lines with those lines down the middle, and it has kind of these leather finishes. So this one's going to be interesting. Coming into this, we can go ahead and just divide it up. So divide, and this is going to be one of the higher ones. This one doesn't necessarily need the retopology right out the gate, and it's probably better if we don't do the retopology out the gate, because it would be beneficial at this stage to kind of stay a little bit lower to play around with this idea of kind of sculpting cloth. And we can use the clay buildup for this. Basically what I want to do is make sure I have symmetry turned on, so we're not losing that, but kind of work on adding a little bit of a poof here. Now, unfortunately, with how I've placed the belt, it's a little bit close to the shoulder, so there's not too much I can do there. But I can go ahead and kind of give this a little bit of an overlap, if that makes sense. I indicated a little bit of that in Maya, but having a little bit more here would be beneficial, and kind of doing the same down here. Just kind of getting this toned in to the extent that we want it will be beneficial here. The other thing is I might flare out the tunic a little bit more at the base than what I currently have. I'm going to use the smooth now to kind of dial this back. And I have to be careful with this one because under this armpit I don't want to actually smooth the hard surface area. All right, so something like that, you know, we'll give that a little bit more of the cloth-like feel. And then on the base tunic here, kind of playing around to the flaring and how straight that is. I'm going to use the move brush here, BMV. I might even go as far as to go into silhouette mode. You know, looks like my other things have materials kind of blocking it. I could use my mask tool here to basically mask the belt area, which will allow me to kind of pull this out here and maybe even smooth back without needing to worry about pushing through where the belt's at. And I could kind of give this a nice little poofy flair to it that we didn't quite get inside of Maya. And I'll take a look at this from all angles here, so you can see how it's kind of uneven. This is a good opportunity here to kind of even this out, make it have a more full, rounder feel. I do have to be careful when smoothing, because you can see it does eat away at this volume here. So that's a bit of a dilemma. But doing this at this lower resolution should help, and we can kind of smooth along the top here. And I'll do the same thing for the front, just kind of getting the flare to be somewhat even so that this isn't falling straight. You know, it has a bit of a base to it. And since I have that area masked, this is a good opportunity to also just come in here with something like the clay buildup if I wanted to, and kind of shape this along here to have a different shape. I might smooth a little, but you know, maybe having it kind of curve into that volume a little bit more. So kind of poofs up at the top there and then divots out. I'll use the H polish here on the front area since it's kind of problematic, and maybe even on the sides here. So that way we get kind of that lip there. We might need a bit more topology than that to get there, but something like that looks okay. I'm not too worried about the insides here. The insides, we're not really going to see too much, but we could control those by setting backface on our brush. So what I would do is something with like the clay buildup, BCB, come into the brush here, go to auto masking and turn on backface mask. That will let it know there's a polygon on the other side. And that makes it so if I sculpt in here, it's not going to affect out there. This is on a per brush basis, so you do need to do it on any brush you don't want to affect the other side of. So just kind of be cautious about that. Like the smooth brush, if I smooth, you'll see it's going to affect that outside. So that's one where I might want to turn that on for. Right now I just have it on for the clay buildup, but I'm not too worried with how that looks down there. So BCB, I might bring this forward just a smidge and have something like that be my more tunic-like shape. I could also play around with some of the areas like this, but I might wait until I'm on the higher poly pass for that. But this will give me, you know, kind of an effect here where it's kind of coming out of the cloth area. Now, for the detailing pass on this, I think I'm going to not try and dynamesh it. I kind of want to keep my subdivision layers. So let's see if we can keep that on here. And just kind of go to work here on our layers. I'm going to create a layer here. And we're going to just start with some folds. And we're going to do it the same way we did the leather. I'm just going to come down here to a lower subdivision, maybe subdivision 4. We could use the damn standard, BDS, and we could use this in a positive and a negative to kind of carve in nice soft folds here for our clothes. Now, something to be aware of is this is going to kind of radiate around the pit area here. And I might go as far as to just mask the belt visually here and then hide it. So that way I can come in and just kind of work this without all the other stuff in the way. It is good to work this in context, but with how this is kind of set up, context is a little bit hard to read with all the different layers we have affecting these areas. So I'm just going to start by adding some of these in, maybe coming along the belt area here where we have this sticking out. This could be kind of an interesting spot to maybe add some pull lines here. So positive, negative lines here to kind of give us a different shape. And then I can continue that here so it feels more cohesive, something like that. And then as this goes up, I could continue these into this chest area here, maybe add in some here. And we don't want it to look too repetitive. This is one of the hard parts of using a symmetrical texture is it does basically mean we're not getting asymmetry in this area. And you'll see this a lot with cartoon style characters and game characters in general, where we use this kind of centric fold here on like neck folds. It's something you'll notice every now and then, and it's probably to make the symmetry read. So I come in here now, along here, and you'll see what I did there is I actually added in sort of an edge running over the top. I'll do something similar to how we did the boots, where we kind of connect some of these things in, but do a positive, negative. So, for example, I might connect that negative to the positive, this positive to the negative. Obviously, we have to come out of here negative, but that doesn't mean we can't branch out into a positive on the backside and kind of get us a nice cloth feel going here. Same situation as the belt. We can come in here and kind of start this process of positive, negative on the back shirt. Maybe add in some cuts here, and add some dividing lines in the middle. So that way we have this feel here of the backside. And that might be too much. Probably is too much. Kind of depends on how much we want to go for. I think in terms of the level of detail I have on the other areas, it's okay. But I can already hear the art director yelling at me. I'm going to commit to it for now. But consciously be aware that I am probably doing the wrong thing here. So this area is a little bit harder. It kind of just has some lines sticking out. We're not going to do it as aggressively because gravity kind of takes it and brings it down. What I'll do is kind of just some lines that come out and have a positive and or negative side to them. You have to kind of decide which, and have a handful of these to kind of break up this area and make it feel like the cloth is coming down and folding on itself. And I'm going to do it somewhat even intervals here. And once again, just doing positive on one side, negative on another. So that way we get a sense of depth along this area here. And we can have long ones and short ones kind of intermittently mixed in. So that could be kind of a good way to kind of balance this. Maybe we do a long one, and then we have a short one, a long one, and a short one. And that'll hopefully give us a nice look for the cloth folds. And remember, we can dial all of these back, so this isn't necessarily going to be the final result here in terms of that. I'm also not quite liking how much I made that backside flare out, which is going to be interesting to kind of adjust. But something like that, you know, will kind of give us cloth folds, and we can see if they feel appropriate to scale. I think they might be a little bit too large, but kind of work. On these bottom ones, I'm going to come to a lower subdivision and kind of smooth them a bit more. Probably not that low of a subdivision, but kind of make them fade a little bit more and blend in to the surrounding. This one in particular, I wasn't liking that much. So just kind of smoothing them so they go into this final structure a bit nicer. I think that looks okay. Let's come in here, though, and make some adjustments. Let's go back into the layer. This is the folds. You can see I can tone this back down, just like we did before, if those are too strong. I'm going to actually turn them off for the moment and just hit the plus icon here. And just adjust that backside so it's not sticking out quite as far. I'm going to make it fall straight down, kind of like I did with the front. And I might also bulk the back a little bit here, because that looks a little bit silly. So just kind of bulk that, and then when it comes to this, I'll probably have to grab this from this angle, which is weird to think, but pull that back down to be more straight. I feel like the flare I had on that looks a bit silly. And that might be kind of hard to do at this point, but we'll see if we can make it work. And I might just smooth out the base on all of this a little bit. If that, base is going to go thin back there and rounded for the sake of retopology and consistency, I'm probably going to want to have it be the same everywhere. So something to be mindful of as we move forward here. So let me see how that looks like at a higher poly. And then let's go ahead and bring back in our layer for our folds here and just make sure those are all cooperating. I'll set this back to 1 for now, and that looks okay. I do want to make some adjustments on the front there, though, so let's come back into this layer. And main thing I want on this one is it's no longer kind of falling forward. Since I did that smoothing, it's kind of has that inward divot, and I think you can see that there in the silhouette in particular. So I'm going to want to come in here and just make sure this is more forward-facing on the base. And I might come in with something like the H-polish. We don't want to do this on this highest layer, but kind of flatten this out so we're not getting that weird poof, and it's still kind of coming to the furthest point at the base here where it's kind of free hanging. So kind of carefully go about doing that. And pull this forward a little. And this is one of those things that's a lot easier to do at a lower subdivision. Okay, so something like that, is feeling okay with that angle. I'll play around with the roundness now. And that should be okay. Let's go ahead and increase this and bring our folds back in. And then we can continue exploring this. I think the folds are sort of working. I might go back and do a pass where I do smaller folds. But I think for now this is okay. So let's set that to 0.5. And then we have a couple lines that are essential for this. The front tunic line. I don't think we'll do anything in the back. So let me turn off the visibility on this, create a new layer here. And we've already seen this with the chisel, so we'll just go ahead and hit B, C to get to the chisel here, and we can draw this down. Now, one thing to be aware of is we are going down the symmetry line, so you do have to be careful with that. But I think that'll be good, just like that. And then we can, what subdivision did I do that on? That's interesting. Smoothing this out actually very aggressively gets rid of it. This might be an exception. Let me see. We might just set this to a lower size. Now, we definitely need to smooth that. So this is an area where we may not have enough subdivided information to kind of convey this detail. That's an interesting one. That deals with the mesh density. So I may actually have to flatten down these layers and rebake, or try a different approach here, maybe more than one pass of this, or even creating something like this and using BPI to pinch, and then aggressively kind of pinching these together, and considering smoothing after the pinch here, which might be the best option. If I do the pinch, though, I do need to kind of finesse these to be somewhat evenly spaced. Which also might be fine to just leave as is, with those lines in there. I don't really like the artifacts those gave, though, so I can play around with that, just kind of cleaning it up lightly here with smooth. And I think that gives me enough of a line there for the seam that I'm happy with. So I think that looks pretty nice for the tunic. I may want to continue it on the inside, though. That's one thing I'm not doing at the moment. So let's take a look at that real quick. And this one I don't need to worry about as much, but we can go ahead and come in here with the chisel, and we can get that chiseled in there. So same deal. I'll just come here and hold Shift and release. Notice it is going through the backside, so we need to come in here to Brush, Auto Masking, Backface Mask. Click with a smaller brush here to here, holding Shift. Okay, so something like that. Smooth that out a little bit. And this might be one of those areas that we have to play around with a little bit to get perfect. This is where the lower subdivisions also come in, kind of smoothing this area and making sure these guys are playing nicely. And for this one, I might use something like the BDS, the Damn Standard. That's going to give me a easier time kind of going over the top and maybe even into the backside here. It's okay if this area is not perfect. It's so small, it's not going to show up, especially after we do our projection. But it could be nice to just have a little bit of a separation there, so that way it feels like it is going in there correctly. Then on this backside, I accidentally nicked. I can go ahead and just kind of smooth that out and get a cleaner look to that. So let me get that all set. All right, and now we should have our first pass for the tunic. We'll have to decide what kind of surfacing stuff we want to do for the cloth, but we'll repeat a similar process like this to the arms, and we're also going to need to do a similar treatment to the other area as well. Let me turn this on, though, to 100, and just kind of finesse this in here with the Damn Standard a bit more, and I'm going to hit Alt on the Damn Standard, which is a little bit weird. Actually, maybe not. We'll not do Alt, but we do need to do BPI here to pinch. So BPI to get our pinch brush and pinch that in. And that'll do the trick. Now, when we take a look at this, we should be good. I don't know why our color's on black. And you'll see our character coming together. All right, so now that we got our base cloth in here and we've got our main line that we care about, I don't think I'm going to add any more lines than that to this. We can go ahead and start working on our leather here and maybe tidying up some things. For example, right there, I have a weird little indent. I might want to go ahead and create just a special layer for that, but let's go ahead and name these. Go ahead and name the seam line. This one here, this layer was kind of our adjust, so I'll just name this one adjust. And since this was an adjust layer, I can actually use this adjust layer for this backside adjustment that I'm seeing here. This little weird, I don't know, tail thing we got going here. For this, I'm just going to switch to BHP for the H-polish brush and just kind of flatten this back up into the torso area. And I think that'll do the trick. I don't know exactly the cause of that, but good enough. I think that'll work. And what we're going to do next is we're going to work into the leather here. So we'll go ahead and give it the same treatment we did the previous leather. We'll just come in here and add a layer here. And we'll just make this our leather beat up. And once again, we're just going to use the flatten brush for this. So BFA 100%, and just come in here and basically go in lines. Remember, we use lines for leather, circles for metal. And I don't know if this is technically metal or leather in our concept, but it's brown, so I'm going to say it's leather. And we'll just basically go back and forth over the surface to kind of create that effect. Now, this is an interesting area. I might consider also flattening its edges. We'll see. But something like this is going to give us a somewhat leather-like finish, especially in Substance Painter. They have a smart material in there called stylized leather that, well, fits stylized characters quite nicely. And it uses a curvature input, so having these little edges on here might nicely pick up some of the detail using it, which is something to kind of think about. So I'm just going to work my way around here. Need to make sure I have symmetry turned on. I do, thank goodness. That's going to save me some time so I don't have to do the other side. And also do the interior a bit here. It probably doesn't need to be done because it's going to be covered. But it wouldn't hurt to have something in there just in terms of detailing. So I could come in here and there we go. And play around with the center area. I'm going to do the retopology on this. I'll have to decide if I'm going to do it in separate chunks. I'll probably do it in separate chunks initially with the intent of combining them later for less draw calls. And we'll talk about, all that stuff in terms of optimization when we get there. I don't want to get into it now because we still got plenty to do before we get there. All right, so something like that. And I'll repeat the process here on the neck area, since this also appears to be made out of some sort of a leather material. And just very gently come in here. You'll notice I'm undoing when I hit a corner edge a little bit too hard. I don't want those like distinctive chips out of there if I'm not going to come back and do a finish on that where I go over that surface in terms of the edge. Like I mentioned, I might for this. Unlike the other surfaces that are made out of leather, this one's a bit different because those edges are just so hard that this has. I think doing an edge treatment similar to how we approach the metals would be beneficial and hopefully not detract. And the nice thing is if we do it with a layer and we decide, hey, that looks awful, we can just decide we don't want that layer on. We could also tone it back, which is good. But something like that is going to give us a little bit of a beat up there for that leather. And you'll see we can't really see the leather too much, but it's still there. And let's go ahead and just add another layer here. We'll make this our leather edge. And we can come into our leather now and just kind of ding up these edges a little bit here. I might even go as far as to play around with working it into this area. We'll see. But just kind of giving these a bit of an angle, similar to how we did the metals. This should still look distinctively different because we're not doing the clay buildup crisscross thing that gives you the different levels to kind of work on. So this should just kind of look like it was stripped by a tool in terms of the leather effect, which is what we're aiming for. And I might even need to play around with flattening on that other side, which I might do after I get this initial ring around here, and just attach it to this layer because I feel like it would make more sense attached to the edge layer simply because they kind of go together. So for example, I was going the other way, but coming along here, and I'd probably have to make this smaller, but going back and forth like that, I think might be something I'll consider to add a bit more character. But let's go ahead and do this first. The reason why is I want to keep my brush size. Well, I guess I don't have to keep my brush size consistent. I need a bigger brush for this one anyway. So I'll go ahead and up my brush size for this. And apparently we didn't do the treatment on the inside here. So I'm going to backpedal real quick. Let me go ahead and come back to this layer here and enable it. I didn't do this treatment here on the interior, and I should have. So let me get that set up here. So that way I can make this work, and then I can do the same here, kind of making this larger and just kind of adding in some detail here. Now, I am going to make this pure black, so I don't really need to add detail to that interior, but better to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it, with the exception that you absolutely don't need it and you need to remove it. But hey, if you make it a layer, then that's an option. All right, so let's come back in here. I don't want to do this super aggressive. I think that was a little bit too aggressive in terms of the size. And I'll just come along here, add in this bevel to make it broken up and imperfect, so we don't have these perfect manufactured looking lines on our organic form here, since it doesn't fit the rest of the style. And then just kind of repeat the process down here. I probably need a smaller one for this one. Just kind of angle this out here and make this have a nice bevel inward. Now this is one where I might go a little bit more aggressive in trying to tuck it here, because I feel like the lift line this has doesn't really make sense. Kind of the lip it has, so to speak. It would make sense if this whole thing just kind of beveled up and into that top area there. I probably should be using masks to make sure I don't nick the cloth, but I think the nicks on the cloth are so minimal that we don't see that. And I think that looks pretty nice there for the neck. We're giving it that beat up look. And I might go ahead and come into these ones now and do a similar treatment that I just did, making the edge more of a bevel, kind of coming in here. So I do have to watch that going into the shirt. Now, something I could have done since we were in Maya is I could have used UVs to create selection groups. And normally I do, but I probably wouldn't have thought to do it in this regard. My approach this time was a little bit different. I broke the character into chunks, so that made it so we didn't really need to have separate shells for things like polygroups. But in this instance, it probably would have been good. And this is, the type of thing where I could go and back out and do that. But a lot of times with game stuff, you're on such a tight deadline, you don't care. That level of precision's like, okay, well, it's going to give you a little bit more accurate result. Is it really going to be worth the extra time it takes? Because the thing is, I can come to a slightly lower subdivision here and just kind of smooth this out. Maybe not that low, but smooth out these areas that I've nicked here and, get a perfectly fine result in terms of the high poly, creating that transition from cloth to leather here. And the other thing too is scale. From a distance, we're probably not even going to see these things, so I don't think we need to worry too much either. I'm kind of curious here. I feel like that's color information. Sometimes polypaint turns itself on, so I'm going to turn that off. It looks like it turned itself on. And that'll give me my leather effect. Now, the one last thing we have with the leather is kind of that lumpiness. And what I want to experiment with is whether or not that looks good here. I'm also noticing here, you can see that we have this area kind of going into the belt, so we might need to make either the belt bigger or the leather smaller in this instance. I'm also noticing this flare here on the cloth. So want to do a quick cleanup pass. I'll just go ahead and create a new layer here and just name this cleanup. And notice I'm making a new layer. I'm not going back and trying to find the layer these are a problem on. That's for the sake of speed. Going through your layers and trying to find the problem is a problem in itself. So I can reduce those down. We kind of lost the sharpness there though, so I'm gonna maybe not smooth quite as aggressively at these low layers and just very lightly play around with this. Or maybe just leave it be. We'll go ahead and get it at the high layer here. And then this little area here, we need to play around with and see what the deal is, where the issue is. So with this, I could probably just use the move brush and just kind of nudge this up here and even pull it back down a little. So that way it just isn't bugging us anymore. And we can look this over to see if there's anything else that needs that sort of treatment. In general, I think the belt buckle, sits in there a little bit weird, but I'm okay with that. This here, I can pull down. It's kind of having too much of a perfect line there around the belt. So there might be a couple areas like that where I consider that, or maybe even come in here and smooth this so we don't have this, perfect belt line here. It goes nicely into the belt in these areas. So the one exception is maybe towards the center here. I have to be careful I don't smooth out my center line, but I could smooth it out where the belt is probably. So let's go ahead and bring that back in. And that will get rid of those really weird sharp edges around the belt, which I think is great. All right, let's go ahead and do the treatment we did on the leather using the noise. I'll go ahead and hit solo here, and I'm going to do this across the whole form to see how it looks across the cloth. We'll just go ahead and go to surface. We'll go to our noise here and make it somewhat large. So let's look at it, in correlation to the leather. I've been doing something kind of large like this with it. And if I want to, I can turn solo off to kind of compare with like the belt. And I think that looks okay. We'll go ahead and apply to mesh, so that way it applies it to the layer. And then just remember I've been doing like a 0.1 on this. And you'll see that'll give a little bit of noise to the cloth, and it'll also bring the leather into the style we're looking for. So at this point, we're getting pretty close to this character being done and detailed. Like I mentioned, I might want to have larger and less plentiful shapes in the cloth there for this style, but it's looking good enough. I think we'll just keep moving forward with it and wait to get yelled at by an art director down the road. Seam lines at 1. All right, cool. I think everything looks okay there for the body. We might have to emphasize some things in Subs and Painter. All right, so let's go ahead and save our progress here. And the next cloth pieces to get to are going to be our body here and our legs. And those should be pretty quick. If I recall in our concept, they're kind of just ambiguous leather-looking stuff. So we'll use the leather treatment and cloth treatment combination for those. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can catch the next video in the series when it goes live.